powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to Sleuths Unleashed, unraveling criminal cases with your podcast hosts Victoria Kennedy and Susan Gonzalez. In this podcast, we dive deep into the world of crime solving, exploring both the mysteries that baffle and the breakthroughs that inspire. Whether it's cold cases, unsolved disappearances, or the innovative techniques that crack the toughest puzzles, we bring you stories that captivate and challenge the mind. Join us as we uncover the truth, one case at a time. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and let's get sleuthing.
Hello, everyone. We're here today to discuss a new case. We are going to discuss the case of Brandon Swanson and his disappearance. His body has not been found. They did find his car, but nothing else. No glasses, no clothing, no anything of any trace of him personally. So I'm going to go ahead and start off today with that. So Brandon Victor Swanson, he was born on January 30th, 1989 in Marshall, Minnesota, to his mom, Annette, and his dad, Brian. They were a very close family. He did have a younger sister, and they lived in a quiet area that probably Marshall, Minnesota, around 13 to 14,000 people, and it was primarily agricultural. Brian was what we know as good in school. He always seemed to know what he wanted to do. He loved reading. He loved learning. He was great in science. And he graduated Marshall High School in 2007. And that's when he chose to stay home with his parents for a year. And he was going to get a certificate in renewable energy and wind turbines from Minnesota West Community and Technical College. He had big plans upcoming for the next school year where he was going to attend Iowa Western College, which was pretty far away from his home. It was about 250 miles away from Marshall, Minnesota. So he would have been going out on his own. He was really excited about the opportunity to be able to do that. But on the last night of his class for his certificate program, which he completed, and he was so excited about what his next opportunities were going to be. It was May 13th, 2008. And he decided that in the evening, he was going to go out and celebrate with all his friends and just kind of lay back and enjoy it because, you know, his certificate program was over and then he could take a step towards his next one. So he was enjoying himself that evening. He went to a party. Maybe they said had one drink they thought they saw him have. And it was in Lind, Minnesota, which is about 7 miles southwest of his hometown of Marshall. He drank there one drink. They said he didn't look intoxicated or anything when he left. He was going to head out to another party that he went to. And when he got to the other party, it looks like it was about 35 miles northwest towards Canby, Minnesota. And that's where his college was located. So he wanted to go back and tell all his friends and classmates bye because that was going to be the last night they were going to see each other. It was probably like a going away party for everybody because they were all going different directions. He may have had a drink or two at that party. Nobody's really for sure, but they said they might have. But when he left around midnight is what time they're assuming that he left. Nobody questioned his ability to make it home. So they thought he was fine. He was supposed to head straight home. It was going to take him about 30, 40 minutes tops. And he had made that drive every day back and forth to class. So it was a straight shot down the highway that connected Canby and Marshall on Highway 68. And nobody thought anything out of the ordinary. They just thought he was going home for the night. And that's when he hit some trouble with his ride and somehow managed to get his car stuck in the ditch off the shoulder of the road.
So just before 2 a.m., he actually called his parents to come and pick him up, but he was so lost that he actually sent them into the wrong direction, trying to find somewhere they would both know. Eventually, he told them he thought he could see the lights of Lynn, a nearby town, and decided to take a shortcut through an abandoned farm field. While he was taking this shortcut, he was still on the phone with his parents, And suddenly he just basically said, "Oh shit." And then the line just went dead, and he was never seen or heard from since. So at that moment in time, they were calling him, he was not picking up. The mom had like this weird feeling throughout her body, which I cannot blame her. And like I said, they just kept calling and calling and calling. So during the time though, when he was on the phone with his parents, the dad actually did hear in the background that there was water. He could hear that. So when the line totally went dead, automatically the assumption was maybe he fell into the water that was nearby. But when they actually went the following day and there were searches done, he was not located in the water. But even before then, the parents went and they tried to find him to see if they could find him, if they could find the car. Maybe they'll see him walking on the side of the road, but again, they pretty much never did. It was as if he was here one day and the next he wasn't. So the following morning, his mom, Annette, actually reported him missing. And they had canine dogs that actually led the police towards the Yellow Medicine River. But then the scent actually was lost. So somehow, some way, and I really don't remember, but somehow, some way, a second scent was actually located. And this scent of Brandon's was located either going towards a farm or on a piece of farming equipment. And when the person who owns that property, when they were asked, "Can we come on the property and search?" he pretty much said, "Hell no, you're not doing that." So at that point, they had no other leads. The parents continue to go on onto various news sites, did stories, really wanting to kind of keep his story out into the forefront, but he just mysteriously disappeared, and they have not seen or heard from him since. I mean, this was in 2008. Cell phones were not as good as they are now. So he had other things, that were not in his most favorable condition. One, the cell phone back then was not as great as they are now. Second of all, he was either partially or totally blind in one eye. So there's going to be a lack of vision right there. So when the parents continued trying to search for him, still there was no sign. If he was murdered out by his car that was located in a ditch, which to me, looking at the photo, it's as if he was trying to make a turn. Oh, let me go ahead and just make a U-turn right here. And somehow, some way, that's how his car actually became embedded in that ditch. He gets out, he's walking, and again, it's as if he just was picked up by a UFO and never seen from again. So at this point in time, there's literally no other leads, but we obviously know that he did not drown. There would have been something of his. You know, People who drowned, eventually they're going to come up to the surface, and he has not. So I don't really think he's in the water. Second of all, what about his cell phone? And why is all of a sudden he's just saying, "Oh shit"? I mean, this is a road that's literally out in the middle of nowhere. So did he see somebody? Did somebody believe that maybe he was on their property and they wanted him off? Did he suddenly just stumble across this farmer who is not allowing law enforcement to go on his land and search? Did he end up taking Brandon by gunpoint? At
Well,
this time, there's absolutely nothing. I mean, there's so many theories that are out there. But
Well,
do I feel he, ended up drowning? I don't. I don't. Somehow, some way, what I feel is that he came across the wrong person, basically.
and the funny thing was is that when the night the dad was driving down to try to help him get his car out of the ditch, the parents were driving down. They were explaining, and he was saying, "Flash your lights, honk your horn." You could hear the horn honk in the phone, but you couldn't hear the horn out in the area or the flashing lights. So it was obvious that they weren't in the same place, but he kept insisting that they were. Um, but come to find out, when they did pull his cell phone records, they did learn that he was nowhere near Lind. He actually pinged off a cell phone tower near the small town of Taunton, which is 25 miles away from Lind to the northwest of Marshall. So it's almost like he went a different direction. And maybe that's why you're thinking he did a U-turn or was trying to make a U-turn, and that's how he got stuck, because
Yeah.
maybe he realized he turned down the wrong highway. Um, and so they located his car, and that's where they located his car, in a ditch on the side of the road near the Taunton area. And so they did ground searches and covering all the fields and areas. Brandon may have attempted to make shortcuts going towards what he incorrectly assumed was Lind. So they don't think that he thought it might have been Lind, but it wasn't even Lind. So I'm not sure if he was like, did he have more to drink than they thought he did? Or did he just get himself like turned around and confused on where he was at because it was so dark outside and late at night? Um,
Well,
so Taunton,
that's kind
yeah.
of what I'm thinking too. Um, did he was he a little bit intoxicated? Was he buzzed? If I'm not mistaken, I believe that the parents said when they were speaking with him that he was completely coherent, that it did not appear as if he was intoxicated, basically. But at the same time, you don't have to be intoxicated or a little bit buzzed, I guess we could say, to have some type of difficulties thinking. You might not have difficulties
Right.
talking, but that's where, you have one drink, one shot, whatever it was, and it can cause you to think that, you're at one place when you're not, basically, because it is alcohol. And we don't know
Right.
how much he can consume before he kind of gets into that altered state. And again, we don't even know what exactly he was drinking. He went to two parties. That's why I feel the way the car is that he was going to go and make a U-turn.
Well, and what seems off too is that, okay, so Taunton is directly on the way from Canby to Marshall. So he was in Canby at a party, but he was going home to Marshall. So he had drove through this town daily to and from class. So that would be where he mixed himself up, that he was close to Lind, because Lind is 7 miles beyond his home in Marshall. So that's a further drive. So that doesn't even make sense why he would say that he can see Lind and that he was going to head towards Lind. And he didn't call to report being stuck till after 2 a.m., but everybody's saying that he left the party around midnight. So the time frame is like way off too. Like from the party to where he wrecked the car to where he started walking to the time he called his parents to come and get him out of the ditch, and then not notifying him or not being able to find him. So it's like if they would have kept going, I think they would have found the car, because it seems like it was on the way at some point, but the way he told him was not where he was. So it's not like he made it that far. So
So
that's kind
who's
of
to
weird too, that there's 2 hours from one place to that little town. So where was he between midnight and 2?
so who's to say? And there's so many theories that are going to be out there, but who's to say that those lights that he was claiming to have been seeing were not lights from a vehicle or lights from a tractor, lights from farming equipment, whatever it might be. Now, I don't live on a farm, but from my understandings, people in the farming industry get up at the crack of dawn, even before the roosters start to make their noises. So who's to say that there was not all these cars going to this one particular ranch to take supplies, to take hay, to take, whatever it may have been, and see him walking, and it's like, well, wait a minute, he's on my property. Or maybe not even so much on their property, but maybe it's like, well, you know, this is weird. How come he's out here? And you also have to think that, there's so many freaking creepy people out in this world. So who's to say that whomever was coming, maybe they said, hey, I'm going to stop and offer so and so a ride, or, hey, let's all pull over and kind of mess with this guy. I mean, who knows? But somehow, some way, from what he said, oh shit, I do feel that there was a gun involved.
Well, and another thing is we got law enforcement again.
Oh,
And
Jesus.
in previous cases, we always talk about law enforcement and the things they do. And the mom called and told him, the whole situation. And it took her forever to get them to finally mark him as a missing person because, of course, they're like, well, he's an adult. He can go and do whatever he wants. But at the same time, it's like, when do they start taking people serious when they're like, no, I was literally on the phone with him. We were going to get him because his car was wrecked. And we were trying to get his car out of the ditch because he couldn't, so he could drive home, and he's gone. He just disappears. Like, that's not a runaway adult to me, or somebody that just up and leaves. If you're speaking with them on the phone this whole time and you don't find them, like, law enforcement needs to start listening a little bit more to these parents too, because we don't, yeah, sometimes maybe a parent's like, oh, my kid's missing, they ran away, blah, 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 and we listen to it. But sometimes it's like more serious than that. We've had cases where parents said they're runaways and they're actually missing and they're no longer alive, or we've had cases where the parents say they're missing and they've ran away. So it's back and forth. So, but sometimes you need to listen to the facts that lead up. Like, law enforcement's not listening to the facts that lead up to this, where, we were out there literally talking to him on the phone and we couldn't find him, and now he's gone and nobody's heard from him. So you need to be out there searching. And they did search the river because they said the river wasn't as deep as you would think,
Yes.
and that he could have got out of it if he had fell in the river. There's a possibility of getting out of it, but they thought, if he drowned in the river, and that's why the dogs looked the search, they actually did a 2-mile search of the river and the river banks for 30 days. And they found nothing of his in the river, no body, no glasses, because he did wear glasses. They found no clothing. They found nothing of his along that river bank or the river for 2 miles. So it wasn't like a harsh river either that was like rushing fast. So, and a lot of times, things will get stuck up in trees and things on the side of the bank. So they just didn't find anything after searching 2 miles. So to me, I would think that if it's not a deep river anyways, the body, I mean, if it would pull up eventually, at least somewhere down the road, or somebody would have seen it eventually, because a lot of times you'll find them down the river later on. It might take a while, but you do find them.
And then you also have to take into consideration the current. Was there any current in the river at that time? Was it windy? There's so many different factors that everyone needs to take into consideration. But if he was in that river, if he was in the water, something of his would have been found. And let's say if there is a current, then he's going to get wedged somewhere. And depending if that
Right.
current is going north, south, east, or west, and what's around there, something's going to get snagged on something, whether it's some type of a rock that's in the water, boulders that are out there, tree branches. Especially this is if it's happening in wintertime, then you're going to have branches that are going to be out in that water. So it just really also depends. But because of all of this, the parents, which I give them another more kudos to parents on this one. Now, there's actually a law that went into effect, and it's called Brandon's Law. And this is actually a law that was passed by working alongside Brandon's parents, state legislators, and Minnesota law enforcement leaders. and they drove Minnesota to replace an outdated Missing Children's Act to provide much needed legal protection for missing adults, people over 18 years old. The law was signed by Minnesota's governor on July 1st of 2009, which requires Minnesota law enforcement to report and investigate without delay the disappearance of any person over the age of 18. Now, this is actually going to be, I want to say, maybe close to a year after he went missing. So it just kind of goes to show that the parents, they're trying to be proactive, not only in trying to locate their son, but that way other parents don't have to go through this same scenario. And, kind of going back to law enforcement, you and I, we had a discussion earlier how, there was a cop that became an attorney, and the whole thing is like, well, once a cop, always a cop. You're always going to stick up for your buddies as well. You're always going to reach out to your buddies to see what is going on. So again, once a cop, always a cop. It doesn't even matter if you go from a cop to a plumber. You're always going to have that cop mentality. But the sad part with any missing persons case, if you do not have X marks the spot after the first day of any law enforcement search, they're just going to be like, oh, we don't have anything to go on. And this is when the families continue to call and they don't respond back. There's no updates. The families get frustrated. But the good thing is that if you have a missing person, just like in this case, and the with Brandon, if you have a missing person and that detective is not getting back to you, you have every right as a taxpayer to have another detective assigned to your case. A lot of people don't know that, but you definitely can. Now, is it going to push things along? Unfortunately, I'm not able to answer that question. I think it all depends on that particular detective, on how, on what is that they want to do, what they feel like they want to do as well, which sucks because ultimately they are a public service, right? Our tax-paying dollars fund their paychecks, their overtime, their vacations, their pension, and so forth. So at least they could have the common decency of calling families back. But again, it's law enforcement. But going back to Brandon, I want to know who this farmer is. Why will he not allow law enforcement onto his property? Is this a serial killer? How many other people have gone missing in the same city? How many people have already been found, either alive or deceased? And are they all male, or is it a combination of male and female, or all females? Because I really do feel that he was killed.
Right. I mean, even when the dad says he stayed on the phone with him the whole time until he said, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
When he said, oh shit, the phone went completely dead. So he said he didn't hear like a splash of water. He didn't hear like a bear trap. He didn't hear any gurgling or a crash or a bang or anything. It was just, oh shit. And the phone died. That was it. So to me, that means he ran into something or someone. Because why all of a sudden are you going to be like, oh shit, and then just all of a sudden disappear? There's got to be something out there.
And I probably should have did some research in regards to this, but what else? I mean, how many other homes or ranches are around that area? Did anybody hear any gunshots? And the reason why I'm bringing up guns is because if somebody has a knife, you're going to be a little more, you're going to be hesitant, but you're not going to be as hesitant as you're going to be with somebody all of a sudden pointing a gun at you. That's when I could totally see somebody saying, oh shit, right? Because a gun
Right.
to shoot and kill someone is going to take less effort than it is going to take trying to stab somebody 50 million times until they're dead, basically. It's going to take that person more a lot of effort. And not only that, but a person who uses a knife, again, they themselves are going to get cut because as they stab the individual, that knife slides and there the blade actually ends up cutting their hand. So again, that's why it leads me to believe that there was a gun involved. And did
Well, and
they
not to
even
mention if you're
search?
out in the middle, well, if you're out in the middle of nowhere too, and you're going through people's yards, I mean, people have the guns, and you're talking about their right to not have you on the property or something, um, and somebody could have seen him out there and not known what he was or who he was or something like that. I mean, and not allow, and the thing that gets me is the farmer not allowing them on the property. Here's my thing. I understand it's your property, it's your right, things like that. But at the same time, you have a kid missing and family members and a mom and a dad. Why in the world do we not have this many people in the world that care about that? Like if you have a kid missing and I'm out here and they said they're sent or they picked up something in this direction, can we please search your yard? I'd be like, more than welcome to.
I'd
I
be
mean, I
searching
want you
with
to
them.
find his family. Right, because why not have let them on your property to search unless you've got something you're hiding. Like maybe it's not him you're hiding, maybe it's something else you're hiding. Maybe you have something on the land you don't want the police to see. I don't know. But at the same time, you have family members that are looking for their child, a mother and father who've been out and they still continue, I guess, to do searches,
Yeah.
to try to find. But and this isn't the first time we found where they won't let you on the property to search. We had, we have the other cases that they're like, oh no, but I'm like, it's a child missing, somebody's kid. If it was your kid and somebody told you, no, you can't search on their property for your child, how would you feel? Put yourself in their position, because all these people that do this and be like, oh, it's my land, nobody cares that you're a badass and you're trying to act like you're a hard butt. Nobody cares about that. Let them on the thing, search the property, see if maybe, maybe he got lost into your property, hit his head, hit his head on a rock, something, you know what I mean? And just he bled out or anything like that. But why? No, you can't search. Why just be adamant like that? That to me just seems like it's odd. You're hiding something to me if that's the case.
So I believe in firearms. I have to admit, I do. I live in California. We all know how crazy California is, and it's my right to be able to bear a firearm. However, my firearms are all locked. My family's all gone to safety classes, but ultimately, the only one in the house who can touch the firearm is myself, unless I'm not here and something's going on. But why not just say, hey, what are you doing on my property? And just let them go, right? If I'm at home and someone's in my backyard and I go out there and I confront them with a gun, I'm going to ask them, what are you doing here? I'm not immediately going to shoot them. I'm only going to shoot them if they are trying to cause any type of bodily harm to myself or to my family. And they're going to have fair warning. But I'm not just going to walk up to them with a gun and all of a sudden just point it directly at them out of nowhere. I'm going to ask them, what are you doing here? Yes, is my gun going to be pointing to them? Absolutely. But I'm going to ask them, what are you doing here? You're on my land, you're on my property. But again, I'm not going to go and pull that trigger. So why would this person, and again, this is all speculation about this farmer, right? Unfortunately, there's not a ton of information. So this is all speculations from other, podcasters doing podcasts on the same on the same individual. So with this farmer, again, why not just say get off my property? And why not allow them to search? It was 2008. Are you growing marijuana on your property? Are you, do you have other missing people on your property? Like, do you have something illegal that you should not have, that you don't want law enforcement to see? and just like you, if law enforcement came knocking at my door saying, "Hey, there is a missing kid," I don't care if they are 25, 26, 27. They could be a 70-year-old man saying, "Hey, we believe that this person, you might know this person, or this person of interest was last seen here." I'm gonna be like, "I have no idea who they are," or "Yes, I know who they are. You're more than welcome to come inside my home and search." Or you're more than welcome to go inside the backyard and search. How difficult is
Right.
that? Again, unless you're hiding something.
Exactly. What are you hiding?
So
That's
it
what I
goes
think. I mean, you go ahead.
so it just kind of leads me to believe, okay, this farmer is exhibiting major red flags. Why are we not investigating this farmer? Why are we not running a background on this farmer? Why were metal detectors not used to see if there's any shell casings out there? Again, there
And
goes those
again, this
question
goes back to
marks.
law enforcement.
Yeah,
It goes back to law enforcement doing something extra on a case file. It comes down to the extra work you have to put in. Okay, well, what's so off about being around your property? Like the kid's scent was marked here. Can we go on because we want the dog to smell out more because they smelled him on farm equipment? So that leads me to believe that he says, oh shit, his phone goes dead. Maybe he took off running and ended up in somebody's farm equipment on somebody's property. And then something happened on that property. And that's where it's getting kind of foggy because then you won't allow us to search your property. But they sniffed him out onto the property. And we've had
yeah.
the thing with a whole bunch of dog searches too, with not documenting correctly and not making sure that they're doing everything they're supposed to. So it's like, I think it's the fact that when you have something like this, you need to go the extra mile for it. If if you believe that the scent was picked up on a farm equipment, then and the person won't let you on the property, then why not try to get a warrant with the fact that you had the canine sniff out his scent to the farm equipment? And say, hey, if you're not going to let us, then we're just going to have to go and get the warrant so that we can search for that because it is a missing person. Like something happened to him. And now it's what, almost 20 years that he's been gone and nothing's been found of him. Not a trace of him, period, anywhere.
He's probably on that land, on that farmer's land. These are going to be farmers who have big farming equipment that can dig deep holes, deep trenches within a matter of minutes or maybe even an hour, if that. And chances are that's where he's going to be. So my recommendation for the parents is that, and I did actually reach out to the mom, but she didn't get back with me. So I didn't want to push it. I can only imagine how draining this is for her. But thinking outside of the box, I would really go and literally Google map that place. And then from that place, I would request public records. How many times has law enforcement been called there? Have they ever been called there? And if they've been called there, what were the calls about? What were they pertaining? What time were these calls made? Because if you tell somebody, you let us on your property or we're going to get a warrant, and you still tell them, I'm not going to let you on my property, they leave, you're going to have time to get rid of shit, basically. Unless they
Right.
said, we would like to search your property, can we search it? And you say no, they're like, okay, well, here's the warrant. Then that's when you're going to be like, oh crap. So if I were the parents, that's what I would do. I would pull public records. I'd want to know when this house was sold, who owns it. I would do my own background on these individuals, criminal records, and again, requesting those public those public records. Has law enforcement ever been called there? If so, why? How many times? You can even go back to, let's say that house was purchased in 2000. Okay, from 2000 until 2009, how many times has law enforcement either been called or ended up going out to that property? And why?
Right. And I don't know. This case just seems a little creepy to me that everything of his has disappeared. Because even if he fell in the water, you might find his glasses, or maybe a shirt, or
His phone?
little bits and pieces of him, or maybe even uh like a spot where he fell in. Because he wasn't expecting to fall in,
Mm-hmm.
which is so strange. But to find nothing of him, like no existence of him being there. And the only reason I say that I know there's not a crime scene is it just depends on who he ran into. Like if he was on the property or somebody else's property, we don't know. Or if maybe the person that picked him up in the farm equipment. We don't know that either. But you're not going to have a crime scene if you can't actually search everywhere that you think that his scent was based on the canines. So this one to me is just like, it's a tragedy, but I think maybe he just met with something late at night, and maybe it was an accident. Maybe it wasn't meant to like hurt him or do something with him, but then you know how people sometimes freak out and cover things up because they accidentally do something that they didn't think about. So there's a lot of things that could have went wrong, but it'd be nice to be able to see who this farmer was and question him and see what he knows. I mean, I wonder if anybody really even questioned him after he said no, they can't search their property. So, I mean, to me, I'm probably not, because I'm just going to say that they don't do that.
I feel with
I don't
law
know.
enforcement,
It's
I feel with law enforcement that they should take a stronger stance. I just feel that they go up there and they're like, "Excuse me, can I search your property?" And the people are like, "No." "Okay," and just leave. That's the
right.
impression that law
And
enforcement gives me.
they give me the same impression. Like, I just feel like when they go out there, just for any case that we've ever even discussed, they go out there and it's like, why are you not like investigating it further? Like you lost a scent here, so you know that it ended here, and you found it here. Why isn't there more investigation going on? Why aren't we like trying to find out what happened right there? Why aren't we questioning more people? Why aren't we researching more? But they don't look into it anymore. It's like any case that we've lately that we've had, they don't do anything extra. They're not doing anything extra to help these families like find their lost loved ones. And I can't even answer why. I mean, this just should be given. But to me, I'm just a regular ordinary citizen, so I would think that I wouldn't have the skill set to think like that, but I do. So I would push further and go and look for more. So that's just me. But I want answers though. Like I want to know why. So in that sense, I'm a little different. But anyways, I mean, tonight we had a pretty good podcast on here about this disappearance, and it just kind of brings to light all the different people out in the world that are missing and things that have taken place with law enforcement, with searches, and these families and these witnesses and the different things that could have been done and said. But I hope you guys enjoyed our podcast today. And if you have any questions, like I said, you can reach out to sleuthsunleashed@gmail.com. And then if you have any cases you want us to listen to, also reach out there, because we'll be able to do more cases too, depending on what they are. I can't get to everything, but we'll try. And then everybody just have a good night.
thank you for joining us on Sleuths Unleashed, Unraveling Criminal Cases. We hope today's episode sparked your curiosity and gave you a fresh perspective on the art of crime solving. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with fellow sleuths. Stay vigilant, stay curious, and until next time, keep unraveling the mysteries of the world.